turn to your neighbor, or you might have to shout across and say, I'm ready to grow. Because we're sprinkling fertilizer on you today. You've heard of Scott's Lawn? Sally's human fertilizer. Manure, not manure, Lynn, not manure. But we know that we are in the midst of a spring ourselves, don't we? Can you feel that? And that as we see the outer trappings of spring, it simply resonates within each one of us. That we are blooming ourselves. And if you forget you're blooming, come here. Come here every Sunday. We remind you of that, don't we? We remind you of the opportunity to be in the perfect place at the perfect time, because there is no imperfect place or imperfect time, that life is always unfolding for our highest good. Can I get an amen to that? Amen. Yes, we are here to flourish and grow. So the title of my talk today is Growing in the Dark, because like you, I have felt sometimes in the past year or so that I was kind of stumbling around in the dark. Am I the only one that felt that? Anyone else in this room? Felt that maybe there was a time that you just were like, what is going on? Why am I here? What am I doing? It's not making sense anymore. And I had to remind myself, a couple weeks ago, out of our pantry, I went to the pantry and saw that our bag of potatoes, the potatoes had started to grow buds. You ever had that happen? They just start growing buds. And I thought to myself, well, the potatoes know how to grow in the dark. The potatoes know. They simply are sprouting. Maybe if I'm in the dark, maybe something within me knows that too. The seed going into the soil doesn't go, wah! It goes, okay, I'm ready to grow. I'm ready to be the beautiful corn stalk or flower or whatever it is that I am to be. And yet I have found myself, maybe you have too, in the last year or so, sometimes railing, going, oh, why does it have to be this hard? Why am I having to go through all of this? Because it has been a difficult time for us. It's human for us to have those feelings. And that's when we forget that divine nature that is always there, always whispering to us, you're okay. Nothing to defend here. I picked that meditation this morning particularly for this talk. I wrote that meditation years ago, and I pulled it out and I thought, this is it, because too many times I've had to feel like I had to do it all myself. I've told you this before. I'm a recovering former general manager of the universe. Anyone else out there like me? I knew not only how to manage my life, I could tell you how to manage yours too. And I had to give that up. I had to give up my feeling that I had to do it all. It's still very strong in me. It's still something that I have to go, wait a minute, because when I don't rely on the God within me, when I don't feel that divine essence, when I don't tune into the greater power that is within me, I miss a lot because I think I got to do it all by myself. I miss a lot. Last month I talked about how it takes two. You can go back and watch the video of that. It takes two because it's me plus the God within me. And I've always said the most important step of our 5-step treatment, our 5-step way to pray, is the unification. Because if you don't recognize that you are God, nothing else matters. You have to know you are a God. You are the God within you. And isn't it so easy for us to forget? So easy for us to forget. I ran across a wonderful thing from Elizabeth Lesser, who wrote in Broken Open. She writes about the author William James. He said that there were two different kinds of people in the world, the once-born and the twice-born. Once-born people do not stray from the familiar territory of who they think they are and what they think is expected of them. If fate pushes them to the edge of Dante's famous dark woods, where the straight way is lost, they turn back. You ever been there? I'm not going in those woods. Nope, it's too scary. That's what once-born people do. They stick to what they already know. And once-born people may go through life and never even know what lies beyond those woods, or that there are woods at all. But she says a twice-born person pays attention when the soul pokes its head through the clouds of a half-lived life. Whether through choice or calamity, the twice-born person goes into the woods, loses the straight way, makes mistakes, suffers loss, and confronts that which needs to change within himself in order to live a more genuine and radiant life. Isn't that beautiful? I want to be a twice-born person. I want to be courageous enough to step into the woods, even if it looks dark and scary. I remember in The Wizard of Oz, that sign at the front of the woods and, turn back. I've been in that place in my life many, many times. But I want to be the kind of person that has the courage to walk in there, even if there are flying monkeys coming at me. I got to know that I am safe throughout this entire experience. And I can live the life of a twice-born person. I have to tell you that I was so excited about 2020 being over. Yes, I don't think I was the only one. I was so excited. I was like, 2021, come on, I'm ready, let's go. And the first quarter of 2021 has been very difficult, has been really hard. And I have a great job that I love. I have a husband that I love. There's lots of wonderful things in my life, and yet it's been difficult. And I started to wonder again, what am I doing wrong? Why isn't this easier? And I got a package about a week ago. As I was in the midst of really trying to figure this out, thinking, of course, I had to figure it all out. And I get a package. It was from Science and Mind magazine. I wasn't expecting anything from them. I've authored articles and daily guides occasionally. And I recognized as soon as I opened it up, there were 5 issues of the April issue of Science and Mind magazine there. They always send that to authors. And I said to myself, well, I didn't author anything in there, I don't think. Well, it turns out I had sent an article to them a year ago. And it was this issue that the editor decided this would be the perfect place to put my article entitled, "Can You Live in the Not Knowing?" that I wrote a year ago. It was pretty jaw-dropping when I got this, and I thought, wow, that's amazing. And I reread the article. So I was like, okay, thank you, Spirit. I get the message. You can find this at Barnes & Noble if you don't subscribe. But I realized Spirit was always there, gently guiding and providing for me. I just didn't know it. I had to just keep knowing the truth about that. Ernest Holmes has this to say about it. He says, false experience will continue until the lesson is learned, until the soul turns from that which hurts to its greater good. The spirit of man is of like nature to the Spirit of God, and it is impossible for the Spirit of God to remain in darkness. It's impossible. It's impossible for the Spirit of God to remain in darkness. That means that I cannot remain in darkness because I am one. Do we really believe this stuff, guys? I'm really posing some questions here this morning I want you to think about, because we teach a lot of this stuff and we need to practice it more, myself included. We have got to really practice this stuff. And these times when we're having difficulties and challenges, they're simply growing that spiritual muscle, right? They're simply allowing us to know what we know. I don't know it until I practice it. I can say concepts and theories all day long. I can quote scripture from the Science of Mind textbook. It doesn't matter if I don't use it. It doesn't matter. So do we really embody these principles? And can I trust that even if there is darkness in my experience in the moment, that I'm still growing? And that the growth that is coming, even if I can't see it, I can't feel it, I have to know that it's there. So when a mysterious package shows up and I'm going, oh, thank you, Spirit. I'm published in the April issue. Let me read what I wrote so I know what I need to know. Spirit has a funny sense of humor. And I'm always being given exactly what I need in the moment that I need it. That's what I get to know for myself again and again and again. You see, it takes tremendous energy to create. And isn't that what we're doing? We're recreating ourselves. Crystal was showing me her pendant. Where's Crystal? There she, yeah. She has a phoenix on, and we were talking about how she's, feels like she's rebirthing herself. And I think she's not the only one in this room that has had that experience and might even be going through it right now. Feeling like we're rising from the ashes of something, a life that no longer is working or serving us, and moving to a place where a life that we're creating, that we're allowing ourselves to go, this is who I want to be. This is how I want to live in this world. I love Barbara's talk there where we are the ones that get to create this, and that takes energy. It takes lots of energy, and we forget that sometimes. And if I hear one person say, well, in business, you've just got to pivot. You've got to pivot. Have you heard that? That has been the number one thing people keep saying. We got to keep pivoting. I agree with that. And it takes energy. It takes time. It takes full presence of our beingness to understand that in our pivoting, we are creating again. You are incredible creators. Incredible creators. The power that we have to manifest things in our lives is huge. We just forget it, don't we? We just forget it. Because it takes that energy to pivot, sometimes we start telling ourselves things that aren't the truth. This is Gloria Estefan. You may know her from her huge smash hits, which she started out with Miami Sound Machine. Anybody old enough to remember that? Miami Sound Machine. And then she broke off as a solo artist, and she was doing her Cuts Both Ways tour, which was her album at the time, back in the 90s. It was 1990. And they had finished a concert, and they were headed on their bus, their tour bus, somewhere in Pennsylvania, and a semi-truck rear-ended her tour bus, sent everybody in the bus. She was lying down, sleeping, sent her crashing, across the floor there. And what it ended up happening was she broke her back. And she knew as soon as she, started trying to pull herself up, she couldn't feel her legs any longer. Now, she had just built a custom home with her husband, and she had insisted that they put an elevator in the home because she said, my father was in a wheelchair for most of my childhood, and I know that someday I'm going to lose power over my body too. Now, is that a powerful statement to say to yourself? She said she would race when she was a kid, she would race to the top of her stairway, and she would take it 2 steps at a time, and she would get to the top and she would say, well, I won't be able to do that when I'm an adult because I'm going to be like my dad. That precipitated a broken back. And now the doctors were telling her she'd never walk again. Now the doctor said to her, you're going to have to just get used to being in a wheelchair. And she decided there was some place within her. She said, you know what? Even with telling myself that all these years, I knew that I would be okay. And then when the doctors gave her that prognosis, this is what she said. She said, I said if it is up to me, I'm going to be okay. I don't have to accept their prognosis that I'm not going to walk again, much less perform again. So she started months and months of difficult rehabilitation, had surgery. They put rods in her spine. 2 rods are now permanently in her spine. And it was hard. It was painful. And she said she clearly was in a dark, dark place. But she kept saying, I'm going to make it through this. And eventually, she was able to not only walk, but a year later, she walked out on the American Music Awards to a standing ovation and sang her hit, Coming Out of the Dark. I remember watching that. And it was so moving to see her after she had decided, I'm going to walk and I'm going to perform. And now she is back performing however she wants and whenever she wants. The doctors had said, you'll never have a child again. A few months later, she got pregnant again. Now that daughter is grown. So she practiced these principles, whether she calls them science of mind or whatever, it doesn't matter. But the principle there being, whatever is going on in the darkness, something is happening for my good. Something is moving in the unseen for my good. And I can call it good even when I can't see it. Are you with me? I can call it good even when I cannot see it. Emmett Fox talks about the law of substitution. And he says this: the only way to get rid of a certain thought is to substitute one for another. And isn't that what Gloria did? Gloria simply substituted one thought for another. And can it be that easy? Well, isn't that what we teach? Yeah, I think it is. We can substitute that thought. Will we have to work for it? Yeah. You'll have to somehow embody that idea. And it may be easy, it may be hard, whatever. Does it matter? No. Pick your hard. It's hard to be poor. You can pick your hard, right? It's hard to be ill and unhealthy. Pick your poor. Pick your hard. So you and I are on a fabulous journey here. We've been given a fabulous gift in this COVID-19 time. Even though sometimes I really don't like it, and that's okay, but I've been given a gift to metamorphosize myself. And Catherine Ponder calls it the chemicalization. She calls it when you are shifting from one idea to another, from a debilitating idea to an empowering idea. That's chemicalization. And there's something literally shifting in the chemical makeup of who you are. That's what we're talking about here. Growing in the dark is a shift that sometimes you cannot see. And sometimes you don't see the fruits of that until later. Ernest Holmes says it again in The Art of Life. Negative forces operating in our lives will die a natural death if we practice the habit of being disinterested in them. Isn't that great? Yes. So let's just be disinterested in those ideas that aren't serving us any longer. Not interested. Not interested. I'm moving on to something more empowering, thank you. You and I are at such a place of choice right now. Such a place of choice. And if Gloria Estefan can show us that even through a terrible injury like that, I know I can do it too. There's models around us all the time. This is a friend of mine. She actually was a former congregant at my church in Maryland. Her name is Amy Short. Fabulous young woman. And Amy was telling me the story about, she was probably in her mid-20s when I knew her there in Maryland. And she told me how when she was 18, actually most of her teenage years, she was virtually suicidal. She was actually thinking every now and then about death. Her life was miserable. Her home life was awful. She was in a terrible family that it just was not resonating at all with her. And she said at 18, she was really close to saying, I don't want to be here any longer. She was walking down the street. She lived in Baltimore. She was walking down the street, and someone came along and mugged her, literally pushed her down on the sidewalk, demanded her money, and threatened to kill her. And she said, in that moment, because don't our decisions come in moments? In that moment, she decided, I want to live. And she started to fight back because the guy was he was pummeling her, and she decided, I'm not putting up with this. I'm going to fight back. And she said, in that moment, she chose life. In that moment, she decided, I am going to stay here. I am worthy of living a fantastic life. And she said that trajectory changed her life for the better. And so she went on. She moved to New York shortly after I knew her. She decided, I have this dream, this idea. And she went and she started a business in New York City. It became ultra successful. It's still going today. And now she's got a second business. But there was a moment that she decided, I'm here to do something more than wallow in my self-pity. I'm here to do something more with my life. I think many of us reach that decision when we replace our old thinking with the new. J.K. Rowling, who wrote the Harry Potter series, we do not need magic to change the world. She says we carry all the power we need inside ourselves already. We have the power to imagine better. It's just, what am I imagining? Am I imagining a life of ease and grace and fulfillment and prosperity and love and kindness and compassion? Or something different? How am I going to grow in the dark even when I cannot see? Am I choosing wisely here? Am I choosing wisely? One of my favorite all-time movies is To Kill a Mockingbird. Probably everybody in this room has seen it. And of course, one of the most famous scenes in this movie is when Atticus Finch, the main character, is in the courtroom and he's trying to appeal to this jury. He's defending a black man who's been accused of raping a white woman, which was an uphill battle to begin with. And he makes this brilliant defense of Tom, the defendant. And at the end, when they stand to get the verdict that the jury comes in with, he's devastated. Everyone's devastated when Tom is still found guilty. But the best part is right after that. Tom is led away. Atticus tells him, look, I'm gonna get the appeal going, don't worry. And he starts folding up everything on his desk. He puts it in his satchel. He starts walking out of the courtroom. Unbeknownst to him, all of the black citizens who had been forced to sit in the upper balcony, they couldn't sit in the lower, they to a person stood and honored that defense that he had just given. He doesn't even see them. He's walking out dejectedly. As a matter of fact, the minister, because his kids had snuck in and his youngest daughter had fallen asleep, and the minister there next to them says, stand up, Jean Louise. Your father is passing. And the whole gallery stood, and Atticus didn't even see that at all. He was just devastated. I thought of that scene in this movie as I've struggled to understand that even in the dark, sometimes I can't see, that the divine within me is still honoring me. It's honoring me in ways that I will never know sometimes. And there's a part of me that has to tune into, stand up, Jean Louise, your father is passing. That inner knowing that I am that which I came to be, and that I can hold on to the dreams that are still alive within me. Stand up, Jean Louise, your father is passing. And even if you are out there hanging on by what seems like your fingernails, you're just, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Stand up, Jean Louise, your father is passing. Know that the divine within you is honoring the courage that it takes just to show up every day. Stand up, Jean Louise, your father is passing. If you are out there going, how am I going to do this? I can't figure it out. Tune into that divine wisdom within you that's always there. You don't ever have to wonder what's the answer. The answer is there. It might take a little uncovering to come up with it. But you have the divine wisdom and guidance. Everything you will ever need is right there. It's right there. Stand up, Jean Louise. Your father is passing. No one's standing up. Stand up, Jean Louise. Your father is passing. You too. You too. Have it within you. And if you are in a place that is so dark, 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 and you can't even fathom the light at this moment, know that as you hold on, that there is a light, not only a light within you, you are the light. You are the light. And that you bring that with you wherever you are. Simply allow yourself to shine in the beautiful ways that you shine. Stand up, Jean Louise. Your father is passing. You have it all within you to grow within the dark. Namaste.